beforehand, I'd picked Lyndon Arthur. I thought he could possibly do again what he'd done the first time, even though I knew Yarde would bring it, would be more physical, would be a bit more educated about the way he was trying to bring the heat. And I thought for 3 rounds, Lyndon was doing pretty well. He was tying him up. He caught him with the odd shot, and Yarde was winning the rounds. But I thought if it went into the second half, then it could get really interesting. And then in the 4th round, all of a sudden it was over. So yeah, it was a good night. It was good. You know, there was a healthy attendance, an exuberant crowd, but interestingly, it was pretty much full. All the seats were pretty much full for the entire undercard. It was one of those nights where everybody came to watch the whole thing, which you don't always see. So yeah, it was good.
All right, let's carry on and talk about Anthony Yarde versus Lyndon Arthur. Dec, what were you thinking going into the fight? Was it repeat or revenge for you going in?
I was a bit repeat, but based on the only evidence we had, knowing that a revenge pick was based on a guess or an assumption that he's got something else in the locker.
Exactly the same.
So
like
it was
rational analysis led me to Yarde.
Yeah, rational was like Lyndon Arthur's going to do it again because he's got two.
Arthur, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. He's got 2 arms now, and he's got the confidence from the first win, and he knows he can do it. And what has Yarde going to change or be able to change in this time? The fact is that I think that Yarde had obviously had all this terrible stuff happening outside the ring with family members dying, and I think that he, off the back of the Kovalev fight, which obviously he did very well in it for 1 round, but I think he felt that he was world level and he was taking basically a step back for the Arthur fight, and he almost thought he could just show up. You know what he's like as well, he's a bit posy a lot of the time, and he's one of those fighters who likes to look like he's not trying because he sort of adds to the style. But what he did was turn it on its head completely, and we always knew that was within him, and it's just which one turns up. And I thought the addition of James Cook, although, you know, what can someone do in a camp? Really, what can someone really add in a camp? I mean, I think he did as much as anyone could have asked him or paid him to, and that I think it was a big change. And they needed some extra impetus in that camp, for want of a better word, an extra lion in the old camp. And and I think that's what they got. And yeah, I'll be honest, I wasn't picking Yarde before, but I knew he had it in him, but I didn't think he was going to.
It was always
produce
a possibility.
Yeah, but I thought Arthur was, like, obviously he's very tough, clearly very tough man. So I didn't think that was going to happen to him. So, I mean, I think it's great, as long as you're not in the Lyndon Arthur business, it's great for boxing, British boxing, world boxing, that Anthony Yarde looks like a star again, because he's one of the few real X-factor sort of guys that we've got in the sport over here, I think.
And you've obviously prepared for rematches. Coming off the back of a loss as well against Mr. Linares. How does that change a fighter's mentality going into a rematch like that? I think
he's obviously.
I know, different situation.
Very different, because I think there's no secret the trouble that Yarde had to deal with going into that fight. But I think a point there that made, and I never thought about that, but I think that's a very strong point. I think coming off the Kovalev fight, did he have one in between or not?
Did he have one of his?
I think he might have got him out of there. Yes, one of those. I think he did. But it was like it was an exercise, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. But I think now when you look back at it and you think there was so much more improvement in Yarde, but I believe that, not just because of Lyndon, I thought he's going to build on that at all. I know he's capable of a lot better than when he fought the Italian. He had it all his own way, but I just thought because he'd have that fear factor again, that's going to make him sharp. And I thought he's going to have to weather an early storm. But I don't know if you've seen the weigh-in. I took a bit from the weigh-in. Well, I thought I did. I thought Yarde he'd overcooked it. I thought around the face, sucked in, eyes sucked in, and he always looked fantastic physically, but I thought around the face, this is going to be interesting, and it grows into the second fight. Lyndon saying about having his right hand, which was a little bit of a worry for me, because the first fight, it was very cagey, but I thought that suited Lyndon.
Did.
But I think, having that right hand and letting that go, I thought it's going to create more opportunities, but I didn't think it had come into play until the second half of the fight, and I think that might have been the plan, but if you watch that fight back, I've totally come away from the question here. Sorry, mate. But if you watch it back, Yarde landed a right hand inside the first 30 seconds, and commentary didn't pick up on it at the time, but it buzzed Lyndon. It buzzed him. It certainly got his respect. And I don't know whether it was from that or what, but they didn't have the same zip in Lyndon's jab. I felt he didn't have the same zip in it. And then I thought it was right where he was trying to get up close, not allowing Yarde to work. But I think you've got to give credit to Yarde. I think the way he went through the gears, the body shots that finished it was an unbelievable shots. There's 2 that he landed very heavy, but now it's like you said then, now he's going to fight the winner of my mate CJ against Joel Smith Jr.
Another great fight.
That could just be violence, couldn't it? But I think he doesn't always get, well, he gets a lot of sort of bad criticism, Tundi Ajayi, but fair play to him. He really recognised James Cook at the end of it. But yeah, back to the question about preparing, for the rematch. I think you're always anticipating, certainly with Linares, I got a much more improved than I was. It wasn't that we wasn't expecting it, but he went up a few levels. And I thought, I really went into that fight believing, I'm going to have a fight. If it wasn't for that shot I got caught at 6, I would have got to him. So I thought, this time I be more careful. And he picked his moments a lot better the second time. But I think it's just, I think probably the mistake we made was forgetting how much he could improve. Maybe they made that mistake, part of the team. But I think you always know Anthony Yarde's a very big puncher, and he caught Lyndon early, and I think that first right hand played a huge part in the fight.
Yeah, I think it was very important that Yarde came out and landed something early in the fight. I think you hit the nail on the head there. He is a bit posy, and he sort of likes to tuck behind the shoulder and kind of look like he's not doing, he's not trying, and kind of go through the gears in that casual way. But yeah, he came straight out of the blocks. First 15, 20 seconds, he caught him with a right hand. He caught him with a couple of short right hands on the inside as well, chopping down to sort of the top and the side of Lyndon Arthur's head. And then I felt like, because we've seen that from Yarde, but we only see him really box in spurts usually, and he'll do that, and then he'll have 30 seconds of looking at him and kind of shifting about. And I was really impressed with how he was able to sustain that. I think the feet were better than we've ever seen before. Yeah. Myself and my esteemed colleague Jordan over there, we were actually down at a golf day for Michael Watson a few months ago, and James Cook was there. And I sort of spoke to him and said, how are you getting on with Anthony Yarde? And obviously we know the trainer dynamic with Yarde and Tundi, and it's an interesting camp, I think it's fair to say. And he said, he's a great student. He listens to everything I say. I said, well, how are you getting on with Tundi? He said, well, I told Tundi some things he didn't want to hear. And he took it. And I think what you said there is really important. Like, we've seen Tundi say some outlandish stuff over the years. And it was good to see in the post-fight, he didn't grab the mic and go, I told you. He
recognised him, and it was, and I think Tundi would probably be the first to admit they underestimated Lyndon the first time. Going back to that again, I think they knew they had to be on it, because I certainly don't want to say, it was last chance. It was a big night for Anthony Yarde. I don't know about last chance. Probably a bit, but it was huge pressure on him.
Where did he go?
Any world title ambitions would be over, because Lyndon I would place as Commonwealth British title level, and that's a good level. But if you want to box for a world title, you've got to be better than that. And I thought he was different, wasn't he? Because rather than look for those big single shots, and you can't win anything at world level looking for big single shots. Fighters are way too good for that. They'll see that coming all day. But he got his feet closer. He punched in combinations more. And there was one moment I kind of remembered where I thought that it was quite a big moment. He was coming forward at one point, whereas in the first fight he'd be inching in, chin tucked in like you said, and looking for that big single shot, and then just as he was trying to throw it, he'd get jabbed, maybe not that hard, it'd put him off balance and he'd have to start again. This time he was moving forward, but he had his guard high, his centre of gravity nice and low. He got hit flush in the face by a jab, and he just walked through it. He walked through it, and he couldn't do that in the first fight because he was going about it a different way. And at that stage I thought, Lyndon Arthur's got problems here. Yeah. You mentioned the feet there and getting the feet closer to the target. That was the main bit of kind of technical advice, as it were, that James Cook said. He said, we got to get our feet closer to the target. The last fight, we're starting our attacks from too far away, leaving our feet behind us. So easy for Lyndon to either throw a feint or just touch with a jab and move off. And that's what I was looking for that during the fight. And I felt that that's the best I've seen Anthony Yarde's feet by a million miles.
For a fighter of his calibre, he's always had, his feet are strange, is that his back foot almost disappears behind his front foot, which any amateur coach tell you that shouldn't be happening. He's sort of disappearing behind it. But he still gets that rotation with the right hand somehow like that. But his feet were different this time. And you're right. I think James Cook was the one who probably did that. unbelievable coach. So for anyone who doesn't know about James Cook, what he'd done in Clapton in particular, where I live in Hackney, the Pedro Club, that place, the Murder Mile, one of the most deprived places in the whole of London, killings all the time. There's a club at the heart of it called the Pedro Club. That's where he got his MBE from doing that. So he's a miracle worker, and he works in miracles in, what did he have, a few months? And that's what he really did. And I think it was those little adjustments. I think they were hurt as a camp, all of them. They were all hurt, and Cook was saying that they were crying to him and stuff. I think that was the way it manifested, was they came out and did a job, because they were so astonished by how badly it went in the first fight. So many truths, and they haven't had to deal with many truths actually, because it's been pretty serene apart from the Kovalev fight. And then they've had to really look at themselves, and I think it's going to be great for everyone going forward now, well, apart from his opponents.
One of the things that we've spoken about in the past, Andy, is, rationalising losses. I mean, Anthony Yarde, you lose to Sergey Kovalev, one of the standout light heavyweights of the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, certainly. You can say, well, it was our first fight at that level and we had him go in and we were competitive and blah, blah, blah. Then the Lyndon Arthur fight, where I agree, I think he would have looked at that as a step back. What's your excuse here? I mean, I know in the immediate aftermath of the fight, they thought they'd won, but by all accounts, when Anthony Yarde went back, something again that we've spoken about, there was no lying. He said he felt that he'd lost the fight once he'd sat down and looked at it and gone through it. That's got to stand him in good stead in the future. The fact that he's able to kind of now move past that, and they've addressed some stuff as opposed to pushing it to one side, which I think is easy to do when you lose into a Kovalev and you haven't boxed at that level before.